feel it. We are into a series now about the family of God, and I was thinking, man, one of the ideas that I want us to focus on is that the family of God is a place where we throw open our arms to all kinds of people and throw open our arms to God Himself. We just throw open our arms. It's an open arm. You know, when we wave, you know the idea of waving at people. The idea is to say, "Hey, I don't have a weapon in my hand, and so I'm safe, and I'm waving to you. I'm a friend." And when we shake hands with somebody, we're putting our right hand in somebody else's right hand, and so we're saying, "Hey, I can't fight you if I'm gripping your hand." It's a sign of hey, I'm with you. I'm your friend. And certainly when we embrace somebody, the idea is that, hey, I'm becoming vulnerable. You're becoming vulnerable. We got open arms, and that's maybe the picture of what the family of God is like. It's beyond waving. It's beyond shaking hands. It's an embrace. It's open arms. And some of you may remember this. Well, they're good Hoosiers here, Jim. You know who these guys are? You don't know who these people are, Jim? Who said that? Oh, Gaithers. Oh my gosh, the Gaithers. They're from Anderson, Indiana. They're okay. My goodness. Okay, I thought this would just be. What's that? Cynthia knew? You back in the back. Well, you know what? We're going to start giving out prizes for answering these questions. But Bill and Gloria, they had a song, "The Family of God." You will notice we say brother and sister around here. It's because we're a family and these folks are so near. When one has a heartache, we all share the tears and rejoice in each victory in this family so dear. Joint heirs. This sod, I'm so glad I'm a part of the... Hey, well, pretty good. I tell you, we don't have Joe here this morning, but pretty good nonetheless. Pretty good. In Ephesians, we read, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave Himself for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." That's the picture. It's the family of God is being a part of the becoming a child of God, and then following God's example to us as we share God's love with other people. You know, I was thinking about this verse. Which of you, and this is Jesus speaking, Sermon on the Mount, which of you, if your son or your daughter ask you for bread, will give him or her a stone? If they ask you for a fish, will you give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask Him? And I was thinking, those of us, we just want to give our children whatever. We want our children blessed. That's just part of the nature of DNA. By and large it is. We just want good things to happen to our children. And that's kind of, again, summarized in the very next verse in the Sermon on the Mount. This is Matthew 7, 9 through 11. Verse 12 says this, "So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets." So we're supposed to be saying to everyone around us, "Hey, I want you in the family, and I want to treat you like you're a family member. I want you blessed. I want you to have the very best of," and that's what that's what the whole Bible's all about. You know, you can summarize it real succinctly. Love God, love people, just but open those arms. Open up your arms. We have way too often, I think we walk by people with our arms, our hands kind of pulled to our side, or sometimes our fists are clenched. This is a different picture. Coming back to Ephesians, that passage, Ephesians 5, about loving others just as Christ has loved us. There's a background to that. Starting in Ephesians 4, it says, "Therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Don't give the devil a foothold." But what you're asked to do is to deal with people openly, honestly, really, but not with anger and resentment. And it's the idea of being genuine, he's saying. And he goes on to, "Anyone who's been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need." This is the picture that we receive in Ephesians. And it's a picture of what it means to be a part of the family of God. It's that we're working together so we can share with one another. We're giving of ourselves so that we can help others around us. This is the picture. And again, Ephesians 4:29 through 32, it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave you." This is this picture that's building toward what does it mean to love, embrace those around us? Well, we're in this relationship where these kinds of things become part of our DNA, that we're just seeing people because we just care for them, because they're people. They are made in God's image. It says in Matthew 5, again, the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the peacemakers. They're the ones that are the children of God." The family of God is where we're engaged in making peace, where we're drawing people together, where we're putting our arms around them. There's a word in Greek that's adelphoi, and sometimes translated brothers, but really can mean brothers or sisters or fellow believers. And Jesus uses this term adelphoi, and he says, you know what? When we are dealing with people, we need to be careful about the fact that they are our brothers and sisters. Now, sometimes we say, well, gosh, because you're my brother and sister, I can treat you any old way because you're just my brother and sister. But Jesus said this: "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who's angry with a brother or a sister, a fellow believer, anyone who gets angry," and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, I don't like this because I get angry. How many get angry with your brothers and sisters and your fellow believers? I mean, this is kind of what we do, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of the norm. I mean, we just, hey, we could probably look around this room and say, in fact, yesterday Melissa confessed to sin that she's been angry at me for about how many years? Melissa, I don't know if that's the case, but she still remembered how angry she was, and I'm thinking, sheesh, I probably have somebody angry at me right now. I don't even know. I've just got somebody angry. Probably Betsy, are you angry? You're not angry with me, are you? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. This is and then it says, I tell you, anyone who's angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. And again, anyone who says to his brother or sister, "Raka." Well, that's one thing I don't say. I've never called anyone Raka, so I guess I'm pretty good on that one. You know what Raka means? fool, it means, I thought it would mean rockhead, but it really means empty-headed. You empty-headed, and then answerable in the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Well, I was thinking, who is a better example of this than this guy right here? His number one saying was, yeah, who can say that really well? Was that Tom? Is that you? Yeah, this is, yeah, that's the 18. Yeah, I don't know. Some of us may identify with this guy. I don't know. Some of us may identify with, I love it when a plan comes together guy. And I guess we could probably do a whole series on these different characters. But the more I think about it, the more I think about Mr. T was the fool. I mean, my gosh. I mean, he's a fool for calling out everybody else a fool. And he keeps on getting knocked on the head and put in an airplane, and off he goes. This is, Mr. T was kind of the empty-headed guy. And I think a lot of times we think, oh gosh, I have a right to get angry at so-and-so. And I think that the message is that when that is happening, we are the ones who are the fools. We are the ones who are the empty-headed ones. This is just the way it works, that God is calling us to come to a different way of living. Jesus' family, his own blood family, really thought Jesus was a fool. They thought he was Raka. And while Jesus was still talking to the crowds, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you. They didn't want to speak to him. They wanted to control him. They wanted to stop him. They wanted him to do what they wanted him to do. And that's kind of the way it is, isn't it? The only reason I get angry with you is you don't do things the way I want you to. I mean, if you did things the way I wanted you to, I would never get angry with you. I mean, come on. This is the deal. I'm angry because, I just don't. This is kind of like the Redskins. My gosh. I mean, it's beyond anger. It's beyond depression. It's really sad. But Jesus says, wait a second, my family are not the people that are upset with me because I'm not doing what they want me to do. My family is not based upon people who view me as a fool. But my family, my mother, my brothers are those who say, whatever the will of the Father is, I want to do that. I want to be following the will of the Father. And Jesus is saying, I want to create a new kind of family. A family of people that are just saying, what is the will of the Father in this situation? Not my will. Let me just say, we are really good at saying, this is my will, and we say, Lord, won't you bless my will? Rather than saying, Lord, what is your will, and how can I get invested into it? It's really a different perspective, but it's certainly where most of us are. We say, this is what makes me comfortable, so I just would like everything else to kind of work in this direction. And we have this thing that this is what the family of God is like. People that agree with me about the way I think. And the family of God, I have a feeling, is shakes us up. We're supposed to be around people that don't think the way we think, but are saying, Lord, I want your will in my life. And it forces us to say, gosh, am I seeing things absolutely correctly? This is one of the great stories in the Bible, of course, is the story of the prodigal son. How many of you were prodigals at one time or another? I wasn't. I just wanted to let you know I wasn't that way. I was always a good son. How many of you were the good son? You're not a prodigal son. You're doing it the right. Oh, get out of here! You're a prodigal son. This is I'm just saying. Prodigal said, I want what I can out of life right now. His hand was clutching, grasping, seizing. So he wants the inheritance. He wants it now. And of course, you know the story. He goes off and he wines and dines and has a great time and has parties until the money runs out. And when the money ran out, the friends ran out, and he's left eating the same thing the pigs are eating. And so he says, it says he comes to his senses. And he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to eat, spare, and here I am starving to death. I will set out, go back to my father, and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. And you have this beautiful picture of while he's still a long way off, the father saw him, is filled with compassion for him, runs to his son, and opens up his arms. And the arms are wide open. And the arms are, and he kisses his son, and he gives him a ring and shoes. And he says, the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate, for the son of mine was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate, and the father is just as excited as he can be, and the son is overwhelmed by what's going on, and there's dancing and there's singing, and people are just celebrating, and things are just as wonderful as it can be, and there's one person who's as angry as he could be. And who is it? It's that son who has been really good. I mean, it's the good son. And we have this very strange story that the good son is upset and angry with the whole situation. He is upset and angry, even though the father is saying, I want us to be celebrating. The older son became angry. He refused to go in. He closed his arms. He looks the other way. He is the picture, unfortunately, of many gatherings in the name of Jesus. There are just people gather and they put their arms together, and Ann and I, when we first came here to Hampton, we were visiting churches to kind of get a feel for. We were going to plant a church, and so we wanted to visit churches and see what's out there. And came to this one church. And I think we sat in somebody's pew because they were just not, they were giving us these looks like, what are you doing here? I mean, at this church, there was no one that greeted us. There was no one that welcomed us. We started a conversation, and they just said, hey, we're new and we're just here. Well, they looked at us like, well, yeah. It was you're in my way. You're in my way. I remember going to another church where the church, there were people that had been instructed. You could tell that they had been instructed to be the friendly people. And so they were the friendly people. And so there was this greeting time. And these people came up to us and a big smile on face. It's really good to have you here this morning. And they were the friendly people. That guy, your job is to be friendly. And I kept on feeling like, you could care less about who I am, and I could say anything as long as I'm smiling. You'd be happy, especially if I was smiling and putting some money in the offering plate. I think you'd be happy. It's these older brothers take many different shapes and forms. But the one thing the older brother doesn't do is open up his arms. He makes sure that his fists are sealed and his arms are closed. And the reason is he doesn't want to get hurt. He's been hurt by the way the Father is dealing with things. I mean, the Father isn't doing things quite the right way. I mean, he never does things quite the way we think he should. And so he says, I've got to protect myself. I'm trying to make things right. I'm trying to make things fair. And he says, but I've got to keep my guard up because I don't like the way things are going, and I certainly don't like the way my brother is being received when I am not being received in the same way. And, we have the Father pleading with him. Please. My middle son was the prodigal. He was so deeply hurt by the divorce when that happened. And when he was 9, 10 years old, he would go into the bathroom and he would take baths at night to try to calm his body down, because he didn't know what was going on, but all he knew was that his world had been undone, and that being in warm water would sort of make him feel better. But when he got to be 12 or 13, he had friends that were doing marijuana, and that helped calm him down. So he started with marijuana, and then he had friends started doing other stuff, and so all through high school he started graduating to try to calm himself down. And he's living this world, and the more deeply he was in that world, the less he had contact with me, and the more my world and his world were separated. By the time he's 20 years old, he'd been picked up by the police 5 times. And the lawyer said to us, I can get him out of jail this time, but the next time he'll be serving time. One of the lawyers said to us, he was picked up in Chicago. He says, if he goes to the Cook County Jail and spends the night, you'll think you've gone to hell. The second night he spends there, he won't care. And that was the world I had assumed my son would take, because that's all I knew of his life. That's the only direction. I will say this, when Ann and I got married, Ann said, he will turn around. And I didn't have much hope. It was year after year the same thing. And then this last time he had taken about 10, 11 Vicodin. He was driving, weaving, and the police stopped him, and he swallowed all that Vicodin to try to get rid of the evidence. And fortunately, the police took him to the hospital, and he was there for 3 days. And while he was there, we said to him over and over again, you got to change your friends. And he says, all my friends, all the people I know do drugs. And Ann said to him, I know a couple of guys that would love to be your friends, and they don't do drugs. And he said, who are those people? And I tell you, one of the greatest things in the world is that Ann could say, it is your brothers. They would love to be your friends. That was how many years ago? It was probably about 19 years ago, Ann, huh? Today, Jared would say that his best friend on this earth is his brother Wesley. And they've been best friends ever since. Now, I don't know that Jared's story would be Jared's story if he did not have a couple of brothers that would have opened their arms. We just desperately need people around us who will open their arms to us. We have so many stories. Like I said, this fellow that wrote the song about prone to wander. Lord, I feel it. He lives the life and then goes back. There's such a pull to go back, unless we're embraced, and I have this feeling that somehow the people that get the benefit out of the embrace more than anybody is not Jared. It's Wes. I think the one who opens his arms is the one that receives more than anything. The one that says, "Here are my arms," they're open. They're the ones that get the best. Coming back again, we're told, as dearly loved children, we're to imitate Jesus. As dearly loved children, we're to open up our arms. As dearly loved children. It's the family of God. Lord, I just pray for those of us that are just, there's so much pain in our life that it's hard to open up our arms. We're feeling that we need to protect ourselves, so we can't open our arms. And I just pray that maybe it's going to be incrementally, maybe it's bit by bit. Maybe we'll just be able to open our arms a little bit. But might be something that you're just bringing by us, someone that you're bringing into our life, and we're the one that's supposed to open our arms. And just say, Lord, I'm doing this because I know that you love me, and I want to be a part of that family of God that loves those people around me. And I just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.